In 3, 2, 1, let's jam. Wait. We can't just jump straight into the project. That is not how we do things on this channel. You should know by now that I have to explain the process, so let's jump back to the beginning. Yes, as the title suggests, we are going to be doing a spray paint art today of Cowboy Bebop in the style of the YouTube channel Sketch Art. And if you haven't seen this channel, he is incredible at spray paint art. Specifically, these silhouette pictures that have this crackle border that I absolutely love. So we are going to be doing one of those with Spike Spiegel and the rest of the Bebop crew. So here in Procreate, and you can see that I have come up with a few different iterations of the composition just to see what I like best. And ultimately, I've decided on this one. So the main component is that big silhouette of Spike in the back, smoking a cigarette, of course. And then the full body silhouettes of the rest of the crew down at the bottom. Then I have this general space theme with a color palette of kind of a space sunset. So this deep blue that does a gradient into this yellow down here. And then to sell the space theme, we have stars in the background as well as the two planets, this bigger one and the smaller one. And they are in specific locations for reasons we will get into later. Couple of other final components. We have the swordfish spaceship that is Spike's. I thought originally that I would put the Bebop somewhere, but I think the swordfish just has so much more of an iconic silhouette. So we went with that one shooting through the center of the silhouette. And then finally, you're going to carry that weight. The end card that resonated the most with me. I know it might not be the fan favorite, but it is my favorite. So that's got to go on here somewhere. So that's the idea. And now we just have to execute. And here is that process. Painting on poster board with a variety of spray paints. And I'm using stencils that I have previously cut out with my Cricut vinyl cutter. This first one is just to paint a dusting on this smoke area just for positioning purposes so I can reference that later. And right at the start, that tells me exactly where to put the main silhouette stencil. You'll see me using these square washers to weigh down the stencil just to eliminate any air gaps that paint could slip underneath. And then I just hit it with a quick dusting of black. And again, this is purely positional. All of this black will be covered up. It just tells me where I need to paint other things. The first bit of painting that will actually stick around is going to be both of the planets, and this is one of the harder parts, so I do want to get it out of the way early. Not only that, but a painting like this has an order of operations, and this is one of the first steps that is necessary. So I begin by using this black to add a little bit of a shadow to the back edge. Then I can give each of the planets a unique color scheme, starting with this nice red. At least I thought it was nice, but you can see it disappears pretty quickly. The other planet I'm giving this brighter red, and it works just fine, but I think the first red doesn't play well with the black and white paint because it's a different kind of paint. You see, I bought this one on clearance, and it is meant for these international harvesters, so I think it's a different formulation, and that's why it doesn't work so well. But I am frugal and stubborn, so we crack on. A little bit of orange on the big planet and pink on the little one gives enough variation to make them look unique, and despite what the contrast would have you believe in this shot, they actually do look pretty good. So we'll use just a little bit of fire to dry these enough for the next step, which is adding all of the clouds and texture to the surface of the planets. Start by covering everything in a little bit of white, then adding some shadows to the back edge. A little too much shadow on the back edge. And then we can bust out the texturing secret weapon, and shout out to my parents for still having some old People magazines they could donate to the cause. A couple of swipes and hopefully we can remove enough paint to add some nice texture. Not enough paint on that one, we'll give it a couple more passes. Honestly, in retrospect, I should have stopped there. I think that looked pretty good, but I think I took it a step too far. Oh well, we'll try again on planet number 2. Like I said, this is one of the harder steps for me, and it takes a little bit of trial and error. It's definitely not as easy as sketch art or Tom Welly Wells or anyone else would make you believe. At this point I'm thinking there's still too much white and I'm losing some of that color, so I decided to try to blot some of the extra white off on both of the planets, and unfortunately I think it doesn't work all that well. So as a last ditch effort, I decided to try to brighten up some of the highlights on the lower edge of the planets and darken the shadows in the back just to see if I can salvage it, and unfortunately I'm just not liking how these are turning out. So I did decide to go back to the color for round 2. I figured worst case scenario, as long as I'm not adding too much paint, this should just be a second layer of texture to work with. So I just added a pop more of color to each of the respective reds, and of course a little bit of pink for the smaller planet, and I am going to try again, so wish me luck. Okay, round 2, moment of truth. Let's see how we're looking. Honestly, not too bad. I like that one. Let's try again on the second planet. And I like that one too. I can actually see a planet in both of those. So I'm gonna lock those in with a little bit of fire just to dry it. And after all that, I can still ruin it because I do need to touch up the shadow in the back, so I'll be very careful here. One more spray. Nice. Of course, it's hard to be sure what those planets are actually going to look like when we reveal them, but that's part of the fun, so we can go ahead and cover those up and move on to the next part, which is the sunset background. And really, when I'm painting the background, I only need to stick within that silhouette, but I find it easier to work with the whole page just so that I can see the gradient a little easier. And we're going to be covering the entire page with paint anyway, so a little bit of coverage here doesn't hurt. Here's that temperamental red again, but fortunately it seems to interact with its neighbors a little bit easier, so no problem here. So as I continue to work on this gradient here, I do want to call attention to a couple of things. The first is that in real life, in person, this paint was covering a lot more opaque. So for instance, right now you can still see the silhouette in the back as if the paint is translucent, and that was not at all the case in real life. I could not see the silhouette, it completely disappeared behind the paint. The other difference between the recording and real life is the transition between the colors. They were much more smooth and blended in real life than they're appearing here. You can still see a harsh border in between all of the colors here as I'm painting on the screen, and again, that was not at all the case in real life. It was a much more smooth transition through this gradient. Fortunately, when we get to the end, the camera trickery sorts itself out, and for some reason, that gradient appears much more smooth, despite the fact that I didn't change anything. So I think the final product still looks great. The final step for the background before we reveal the planets is to add some stars. So I can spray some white paint into my gloves, flick away the large globs, and then flick onto the painting these small stars. And it is incredible how these stars instantly transform this gradient of colors into a space background. Magic. I gave all of that paint plenty of time to dry, and now we can take off the metal washers and the stencils to reveal our planets. The first one came off really easily, the second one needed a little bit of help, but here they are. And while I am really happy with both of them, I do think I could push the shadows in the back just a little bit further, so we're going to try that. It is very important to cover all of the exposed areas of the painting, otherwise overspray will get everywhere, even if you are super careful in the paint application. It's better to be safe than sorry. So it really doesn't seem like I am adding all that much paint here, and I'm really not trying to, but it's enough to make a difference. And as I peel away the stencil for the reveal, it's a little difficult to see just how big of a difference that made, so I'll put a before and after, and you tell me if it was worth it. I definitely think so. Moving on to the swordfish. This next stencil is going to be done in 2 parts, the black of the actual ship and then the white of the rocket trail that's coming out of the back. Little bit of a mistake here. You can see with each spray that the top stencil is coming up a little bit, which means that there is overspray that is going underneath that gap. Fortunately, that's above the silhouette and will be painted over eventually. I'm hesitating a little bit because I don't want to put the stencil immediately over the paint that I just put down, but I'm hoping it just won't stick. And it did stick. Fortunately, it didn't pull any paint up with it and still looks fine. Unfortunately, this piece on the left did pull up some paint and actually ripped the paper a little bit. But again, this is on the outside of the main silhouette and will be painted over, so I think it'll be fine. Okay, next in the order of operations is the Bebop crew, and we can use this exact same stencil laid over the planets to position those perfectly. All of these intricate details are a little tricky to weigh down, so I am using a pair of tweezers just to get into this tight space here. This part is a little bit of a delicate balance between using enough paint to get full coverage, but not using too much paint to create any runs and wet spots. Looking pretty good. Okay, everything inside of the silhouette has officially been painted, so we can go ahead and cover all that up, protect it, and paint the outside. And the outside is going to be a 2-step process. Remember how I said that we needed good coverage of paint on the outside? That's because we're going to start with a foundation, a base layer of red. And at this point, I am very paranoid about overspray and screwing it up this far into the process, so I am taking my time and adding extra weights to the outside just to make sure I can minimize the overspray. And it's right about here where my mic stopped working, so for the next 2 sections, I'm going to have to add the sound effects myself. Thanks for asking. Yes, I'm going to do this the whole time for the red and white sections. Listen, you may not think the bit's funny anymore, but I am still smiling. So this is a special crackle paint from Montana, and it is very expensive, but I think it gives a really cool effect. So if I apply this correctly, it should crack and show the red underneath with the white cracked appearance on top. The directions say you're supposed to make these large sweeping overlaps, so if it looks like I'm concentrating too much in one area, I think that will only help the effect. Don't worry, the mic's almost back. Okay, with the white crackle effect complete and fully painted, I'm going to add my signature to the bottom left. And if you look closely, you should be able to see the cracks forming in real time. And I need to start remembering to add my maker's mark to the stuff that I make, so I did pen that in the bottom left as well, using those same tweezers as before. Alright, one more reveal now that all the painting has been done. Looking pretty good. Psych! I almost forgot, there is one more bit of painting. We forgot the cigarette smoke, which is very important, so I do need to add that in still. And now the finishing touches of the painting have been completed. And what do you think, Past Brian? Glad to hear it, except we've got almost half of the video left, so I think there's a little more work to be done. So yeah, now is the part of the video where SketchArt would do a final reveal where he'd say something like, and now for my favorite part. And he'd take the painting out into the sun and then into a dark room where you would find out that it was glow in the dark the whole time. And to be clear, I want to do something very similar, but I want to walk you through my process for adding the glow in the dark paints and pigments and showing you what that looks like. Now I think that I've been yapping probably more than I need to for this video already, so I do want to stay mostly quiet and just let the process kind of play out. There are a couple of things that I want to check in on and explain just briefly, but other than that, I'm just going to let it happen. If that's not for you, that's totally okay. Feel free to jump ahead to this timestamp to see the finished product, but otherwise, here's the process for the glow in the dark portion. So for the little bit of yapping left, it is right here at the beginning. First, to just explain that I'm using a combination of glow-in-the-dark paints as well as powdered pigments. So in some areas I'm using paints and then I'm sprinkling pigments over the top of that. And where I need to just use the pigments, I'm making sure to use clear coat to just wet the area so that those pigments will stick. And then I can use clear coat over the top just to seal everything in place and resaturate those pigments. So if all goes according to plan, the powder should blend in with the rest of the painting to where you shouldn't be able to even tell that there's any pigments there until you shine a UV light on it. And then the final thing I wanted to mention was the placement of that planet like I teased at earlier. You can tell that I put a ring around that planet that should only be visible under the UV light. And the ring of that planet is supposed to serve as sort of a halo at the crown of Spike's head. I feel like that symbolism touches on some of the themes of the story presented in Cowboy Bebop in a really cool way. But let me know what you think. And with that, I'm going to shut up and let you watch the rest of the glow-in-the-dark process, and I'll see you at the end. And now for my favorite part. And there you have it, my first attempt at spray paint art, and I gotta say, I am pretty happy with how it came out, but let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching and for joining me on that experience. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more awesome projects just like this and others. Consider checking out my channel memberships if you might be interested in some of those perks. And of course, thank you so much to Thomas Computes and Thad Carpenter for being my top supporters. You rock. See ya, Space Cowboy. Oh snap, you made it to the end. Now that's dedication. If you like this video, you might like some of the other life-size props that I've made. Check out one of the videos on the side or check out the full playlist. And click the circle in the center to subscribe. I love you. Bloop.